we have Connie Browning back. Connie came to see us about a year ago, and we filmed a show telling a little bit about some of Connie's experiences and some of the wonderful things that had happened to her with her children. Now, Connie is a second grade teacher, and she teaches the second grade, and you've had some experiences with hypnosis, and you've been working with your second graders now for the second year in a row, and you've seen some magical results. Connie, you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening, what's going on now?
Oh, my second graders are just marvelous children. I've used the positive things I've learned through hypnosis with my children. I do not hypnotize my children, but I use those positive things I've learned through hypnosis, things such as loving yourself, being successful, being in control of yourself.
Right.
These are things that I've learned and I use with my children, and I've had phenomenal success grade-wise, behavior-wise, and test-wise. Those all-important tests, achievement tests that the children take each spring.
Right.
We've just gotten test results back from last spring, and my children as a whole, all 22 as a whole, as a group, scored about 4 months ahead of where, 4 to 5 months ahead of where they should have.
Excellent.
No one scored below expectation. They all came out above, some well above.
Interesting. Connie, I'd like to digress just a minute and tell a little bit about your background, where you came from. You said that you've been teaching for 23 years.
23 years now.
Now, you changed 2 years ago.
2 years ago, I changed my whole thought pattern. I changed myself from being a very negative person to being a very positive person. And I did it through hypnosis.
Yeah, you took our training program
Took
in
the
hypnosis.
path training program and learned all sorts of neat things about myself and turned myself into a happy person.
One of the things, you know, when you first came, and I had forgotten all about it, you were sharing that you were so depressed when you first came that you were feeling like, well, what's the use of even going on? You know? And now you had been teaching at that time for about 20 years or something like that.
20, 21 years.
Yeah, and you had felt like, you know, it was not worth continuing.
No.
And then you took the courses and the training in hypnosis, but one important thing happened, and that was the thing that we teach in the class on releasing, and that was to release the things that were keeping you from loving yourself and start to love and accept yourself, so then you could love others.
Right.
And you started doing that, and I think that's probably one of the keys.
Absolutely.
Because your feelings about yourself and about your kids, you're sharing love, and they know it's genuine.
Yeah, just a complete turnaround.
And so then you changed and you started teaching. I think you were teaching the 4th grade before. You switched to the 2nd grade.
Right.
And started teaching. And then the magical thing happened. Your kids started blossoming, and they started
immediately from day one. I'd taken the PATH courses through the summer. So when school started, I had a whole new perspective on myself and on the world, and it made all the difference in the world with the children.
You shared with us back before, you were telling about how you wanted your kids to succeed, and so you were trying to help them in every way, and you taught them this technique of imagery, guided imagery, of visualizing and using that to develop their creative abilities.
Right. And also to see themselves as successful. Before we take a test, we stop and we talk about it.
Yeah.
We think, okay, what do I want to score on this test? Do I want 100? Do I want an A? You know, do I want just a passing grade?
Right.
And at the beginning, there's always 1 or 2 little boys that'll just take that passing grade and be very happy with it. But they soon develop this sense of, I want to do my very best. And we see ourselves being successful. And we use our memory, and we use our super learning techniques of remembering what we've learned.
Now the super learning techniques, you want to share those a little bit?
I learned those through a PATH course I had with you, of just tuning in on what's being said and committing it to our mind and being able to bring it forth when it's needed.
Do you use some kind of a counting technique or something to help them in that?
Just to tune in, we count to 3. We settle down, we get still, we take a few deep breaths just to kind of cleanse our mind. We count to 3, and then everything after 3 that is part of the lesson that is taught, that's what we're tuning in on to remember, and tuning in on to learn, to make part of ourselves, so that when we need to recall, we can, or we need to apply that skill, we can, or we need to extend that skill, we can. And it works.
It works, and they demonstrate it.
They demonstrate it, yes.
Okay, another thing, you know, there's a lot of different facets of education, and the second graders are, you know, they're wonderful little kids and everything, but, you know, a lot of them are hyperactive, and a lot of them are you know, problem kids, you know, because of whatever things.
Because things at home or things they've experienced.
What about your kids? Your kids are average. They're coming from that same background. Do you have?
We don't have behavior problems.
Really?
No.
And what do you mean you don't have behavior problems?
We just don't have behavior problems. We discuss a lot of what's expected, and we come to a consensus that bad behavior is not acceptable, and that we have control over ourselves, and that...
you say a consensus?
We talk. We talk.
You shared with me something a while ago about the little boy, I think it was, that came into the class after the classes started, and
said the first morning he was in, and I gave an assignment, and he says, he threw down his pencil, very frustrated, says, "I can't do this." And 4 or 5 children immediately homed in on him and said, "You can't, we don't say that." They don't say, "We can't say that in here," because that's using the word can't. We don't say that in here. Let me help you. And they sat down with him and helped him with the skill that I had already taught. I didn't realize he had not been taught that skill, and I was on my way over to him, and they had taken care of it before I ever got there.
Which is probably the very best thing.
The very best thing in the world. And he had been a little bit of a troubled child before he came to me, and had a problem with enuresis, which is bedwetting. And Mom said after, I think, 2 days in my classroom, the bedwetting stopped and never returned. Never returned.
Excellent. And your attitude is very loving. You know, you want them to succeed, and you see them successful.
I see them successful. And I talk to my children. I'm very upfront with them about what I expect and what they can do and what they can achieve.
Right.
And I talk to them on a daily basis about it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, too, you know, you had mentioned that you've been through the PATH training in hypnotherapy and hypnosis, and so you understand it. And you understand what an altered state is. Most people don't understand it. And a child or anybody else can be sitting in front of television, and in 30 seconds' time, they can be in an altered state.
If you've ever watched a child playing Nintendo, you've got an A1 example of someone in an altered state.
That's true.
Very attentive and very, very, very still, and very attentive, very tuned in to what's going on.
And that's why little children can learn so quickly, because they can focus so easily and so quickly. And they literally go into that altered state very quickly. And so your suggestions, your positive suggestions, when they're in the altered state or not, are helping them. But they're even more effective when they're in that state, you know, that state of concentration. And using the guided imagery and those tools and those ways to help. You know, it's not hypnosis.
No, it's not.
Because it's the same thing as watching television.
That's exactly right.
But what it's doing, it's helping them to change in all kinds of ways. To stop bedwetting, to improve their deportment. Like you said, you don't have any problem children at all.
No.
You don't have any kids that act out? None of them?
No. Not for me.
Do the other classes?
Yes, they do. Now, some of my children, I will admit, when they go to another teacher for physical education or music, a couple of the little boys kind of tend to not be as tuned into that teacher and behave as well for her as they do for me. But I just don't have the classroom problems. My children all accepted each other as they were. I mean, that's just something we are accepting of each other.
Okay, but that's what you teach, isn't it?
That's what I teach. Well, I accept them as they are as they come through that door.
Yeah.
I mean, some are grubby little kids, and some are ill-behaved children, and some are ill-mannered children, but that's okay. Yeah. They know they're loved when they step through that door every morning, 180 days a year.
You mentioned several things, Connie, that have happened in your life, and one of them just is passing. You mentioned it a while ago, and you said that, by the way, you're over the diabetes now.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with non-insulin dependent diabetes last August and was put on medication. And in October, when I had visited with you, which was, by the way, the last time I saw you, we had discussed it, and you had given me a suggestion that the diabetes would be cured. It leave my body because it was a learned situation. And in March, my blood sugar was normal without medication and has continued to be normal without medication.
And you say it's between 100 and 105?
100 and 110,
okay,
which is
that
normal.
Is normal. Yeah.
That is well within
normal. And it's stayed that way since March? You've had no problems
No
with
problems.
it whatsoever?
No
Excellent.
problems.
That's wonderful. That's
I
wonderful.
know.
Now, that is a result of what we call a post-hypnotic suggestion. You know, a suggestion that was given in a hypnotic state that took effect over time. And,
a period of time, yes.
And you understood and released the reasons for it, et cetera. But you've also had some other changes. You want to share any of those? No?
Sure.
Okay. You said that you've lost weight, too.
Yes, about 20 pounds since I visited with you last.
You said something earlier about your history in teaching, and that you had been teaching for 23 years. 23
years now, right.
But you said something about the first 21 years that...
They just didn't go anywhere compared to the last 2 years. The last 2 years have been very fulfilling for me and very successful for my children. The other 21 years weren't fulfilling for me at all in any way, shape, or fashion. But because of the change in myself, I'm happier with my job.
Right.
Much happier.
What would you recommend for other teachers? Would you recommend that they learn these same things?
Take the PATH courses. Learn what hypnosis is about and what it can do for you. And after you change yourself, then you can change your children.
Yeah. Now, you're not talking about hypnotizing your children.
No. I'm talking about changing how you feel about yourself and your outlook on life. And it's directly reflected in the classroom.
Yeah. And so I know you feel good about it.
Yeah, I really do.
And you feel good about your life and everything else. And you feel so good that you've gotten rid of the diabetes and gotten rid of the weight, and you know, everything else is changing in your life, and it's really a wonderful thing to see. Connie, I really want to thank you for being here tonight and helping us to recap a year later what has happened and what has gone on, and you know, the continuing of it, how it's changed you and it's changing the kids and it's changing the whole school, because your principal and all the others think highly of it too, don't they?
My principal's very supportive of what I'm doing.
For more information about hypnosis, call our Birmingham number, 205-322-PATH. That's 205-322-7284.